Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Marvel. Marvel has been killed. The Marvel's flops, Secret Invasion flops, and Kang got arrested. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from Gizmodo, Marvel became its own worst enemy in 2023. Ike Perlmutter, former CEO of Marvel, who sold Marvel to Disney, warned Bob Iger, you can't just make any superheroes that you want. At the time, Marvel was doing very well. It seemed like Marvel could do anything, but no one can just do anything. As soon as you go off brand, you're going to disconnect with your customers. When you disconnect with your customers, they're going to lose interest and go their own way. You will lose momentum. You will damage the brand forever. Marvel was bought for $4 billion, but by 2019 might have been worth $15 billion. It was the biggest branded movie studio of all time. And with hubris, with arrogance, with the idea that, oh, well, we can just do whatever we want with Marvel now. We need to decenter whiteness and get woke and make female superheroes. Even though it's not what the brand was all about, they've managed to make the brand probably nearly worthless. I mean, someone would spend money on Marvel to buy the brand and try to reinvent it. No question about that. But if they're going to spend $300 million on a movie like the Marvels, and then they're going to get back a loss of $150 or $200 million, who would want to make more Marvel movies? It just doesn't make sense anymore. 2023 was the year that it all really fell apart. The team behind Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 celebrating what would be the high point of Marvel's year. This year, the once untouchable Marvel Studios finally showed some vulnerability. For 15 years, the studio behind some of the biggest and best superhero movies ever made was all but invincible. Every single gamble paid off. Every story, expertly seeded over a decade, blossomed beautifully. And even in the less cohesive few years after Avengers Endgame, when the studio was releasing all manner of seemingly unrelated, superfluous shows and movies, it all seemed to work out. But not so much in 2023. We saw Marvel Studios' first certified box office bomb, as well as problems unfolding behind the scenes, in courtrooms, and most distressingly, in front of our very eyes. What happened? Why did it happen? Let's relive the story of Marvel's shockingly sour 2023. Of course, to make a movie, it takes years. Of course, to make a decision like we're going to change direction from here, and we're going to go in that direction, and we're going to plan all these things out, that doesn't happen overnight, even if you're just making comic books. When it comes to making movies, it takes years. The decision to make Captain Marvel, the decision to make Black Panther and celebrate his identity rather than him as a character and rather than being part of the Marvel Universe. That was the beginning of the end for the Marvel brand. In early January, James Gunn, along with his partner Peter Safran, released a multi-year plan detailing everything DC had in store for the future. It was the kind of massive, ambitious, exciting announcement that Marvel had become well known for, and while it didn't directly impact the studio, it set the tone for a very unexpected year. Marvel's first big disappointment, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. February brought the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the first film of Marvel Studios' Phase 5, its latest multi-film arc that would ultimately culminate in a massive Avengers-like team-up movie. The film opened fairly well, but the reviews were scathing, resulting in only the studio's second rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. That lack of excitement and praise resulted in the effects-heavy film grossing less than the previous Ant-Man films, which was very unexpected. Quantumania was also the first full-on starring role for Jonathan Majors as Kang, the villain earmarked to be the new Thanos. After debuting in Loki, Kang was set to appear multiple times, leading to his being a major threat at the center of 2 upcoming Avengers films. The end credits scene even specifically teased that. It's the type of thing that had always worked out for Marvel. Surely it wouldn't become an issue this time. In March, Jonathan Majors' major problems began, with reactions to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania leaving Marvel and its fans in a bit of an awkward spot. Things got much sadder and more complicated in March. First up, Majors, the actor who was set to spearhead the entire MCU going ahead, was arrested in New York on assault charges brought by his former girlfriend that he met while he was working on Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. A guilty verdict on certain charges was returned 9 months later, and it didn't take more than a few hours for Marvel to announce it had parted ways with Jonathan Majors. As it stands, the person once thought to be a beacon of hope for the future for Marvel is no longer that. Also in March, one of Marvel's most influential and powerful executives left the company, Victoria Lonzo. She was picked up and thrown out the door. They barely even let her get her things. Human Resources and others went to her office and said, "Hey, you gotta go." They threw her out. She did eventually get an undisclosed cash settlement, but for whatever reason, Bob Iger did not want her there at the company anymore. We've done a couple of videos on that. Very interesting times at Marvel. Alonzo, along with Kevin Feige and Louis D'Esposito, had been behind every single Marvel hit in the past 15 years. Her departure from Marvel Studios left a ton of questions behind. Was she forced out? Yes. Why would she leave? Rumors suggested it had to do with Alonzo's oversight of visual effects in the films, but whatever the case, Marvel had lost one of its pillars. With Alonzo out, Louis D'Esposito and Kevin Feige remained. In May, were they back to normal? After a rough start to 2023, Marvel Studios looked to get back on track in early May. It released James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which didn't just score with critics, it had box office success too. This was the Marvel fans loved. This was a movie Marvel could be proud of. But little did everyone know that it was all downhill from there. Well, that's what the article says, but we knew that The Marvels was going to be a massive bomb. Disney knew The Marvels was going to be a massive bomb. They moved it yet again to try to hide it in its schedule, to do whatever they could do to try to fix it and not have it be a complete disaster. But financially, that's what really killed Marvel. It makes Marvel look like no longer a viable franchise, and certainly not the franchise it used to be. During the summer, there were strikes, delays, and more problems. As Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was raking in money at the box office, the Writers Guild of America went on strike. With no writers to work on all the upcoming titles Marvel Studios had promised for the next several years, the delays began. Films like Blade, which was still being written, were paused. Of course, there were other problems with Blade, with the script being so woke and so terrible that the main actor either threatened to or actually did walk off the film. Films set to start filming, like Thunderbolts, had to stop without writers to help punch up the scripts. Then in July, when the actors joined the writers on strike, anything that was still going, like Deadpool 3, had to stop too. For fans, a big blow was when Marvel Studios, along with basically every other studio, announced it would not be presenting at San Diego Comic-Con. Comic-Con is where Marvel Studios traditionally takes a victory lap each year and also teases fans about what's to come. But with the strikes underway, the company didn't know what, if anything, it could announce. In addition, Disney's CEO Bob Iger, boss of Marvel Studios President Kevin Feige, emerged as one of the most vocal executives against the strikes, making anything and everything associated with Disney just look bad. Plus, he later suggested that some of Disney's brands, including Marvel, were releasing too much content. And then came the Secret Invasion disaster in June. With half of 2023 complete, Marvel Studios seemed to be on the ropes. It had a big win with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but needed to wipe away the disappointment of everything else. Enter Secret Invasion, a Disney Plus show named after one of the most famous story arcs in Marvel Comics history, and featuring Oscar-caliber actors such as Samuel L. Jackson, Don Cheadle, Ben Mendelsohn, and Olivia Colman. This was it. This was going to win everyone back. Remember the success of WandaVision, Loki. On paper, this could eclipse them all. Secret Invasion came out this summer and just died. Nobody talked about it. No one cared about it. And that's not because people weren't primed or interested. It's because the quality of the show, despite its incredible pedigree and budget, was simply subpar. Secret Invasion felt like the first Marvel show that was actual work to keep up with. Along the way, many questionable decisions were made on the show too. The previous year's shows may not have set off a cultural bonanza, but at least they were enjoyable. Secret Invasion was not. In August, they had more labor issues. Why was Secret Invasion so bad? Why did Quantumania fail? An issue that often came up was that Marvel was overworking many of its employees, especially its special effects artists. With so many shows and movies coming out, effects houses and their employees were finally speaking out about the long hours and artistic indecision. It wasn't just artistic indecision. They would dump changes that were completely unfair to the creative people who were just trying to complete the work that was assigned to them under contract. But their contracts also included making a lot of changes, and the Marvel Studio people took great advantage of those people and just dumped extra work that was completely unfair back onto those studios. What was the result of all this? In August, visual effects artists working for Marvel Studios decided to unionize. It's a story that got a little lost with the writers and actor strikes still going on, but put a very specific microscope on the problems behind the scenes at Marvel. Long gone were the days of 1 or 2 movies a year. These days, it's 3 movies plus 3 TV shows, and they'd better be as good as the ones before it. Well, they weren't, and now we had a strong inkling why. On to October. Over 2 years after its first season ended, Loki returned, one of Marvel Studios' most revered streaming shows, and the first to get a second season. Loki Season 2 had a lot going for it. It was the follow-up to a big hit. Tom Hiddleston is one of Marvel's biggest stars. The cast added new faces like Oscar winner Ke-Huy Quan, and the storyline had strong ties to the ever-popular multiverse stories. What it had going against it, though, was Jonathan Majors. Season 1 of Loki is where Majors Kang first debuted, and the plan for him was to triumphantly return in Season 2, fresh off the success of Quantumania. As we know now, though, Quantumania was only a minor success and it really was a big disappointment, and Majors was at that point embroiled in legal issues. So anytime he appeared on screen, it was just off, an unintentional blemish on a show that, at least by the end, had the best of intentions. Ultimately, Season 2 of Loki did end up being a success. Fans who watched it for the most part enjoyed it, and the ending was a huge payoff for fans of the Marvel franchise. However, coming off Quantumania, Secret Invasion, and 6 projects the year before, it didn't quite feel like the appointment viewing of the first season. So even with a win, it wasn't the triumph it could have been. And then came November. The first trailer for the Marvels was released in April. It promised a fun, exciting action film bringing together not just Captain Marvel, but 2 characters fans loved from Disney+, Ms. Marvel and Monica Rambeau. Ms. Marvel was not a successful show. The ratings were very bad. They were also very bad when they put them on ABC. But they have this agenda. They must push these female superheroes that people don't want. There are plenty of male superheroes people also don't want. Just because a character is a certain gender or skin color, it doesn't mean you should be pushing them through your character universe. You introduce them, and then you wait to see what the customers say. You wait to see what the audience say. Do people love the character? Is it a hit character? Great. If it's not, you leave it in the background, and then you introduce another character. Whatever characters resonate, those are the ones you get behind. But that's not how Marvel does business. In a way, The Marvels was poised to be the big culmination of groundwork that had been laid for years. But as the film got closer to release, something just felt wrong. Director Nia DaCosta was targeted with odd accusations and blame. The marketing shifted to ignore the Disney Plus characters and focus more on Captain Marvel. And as one might expect, online trolls hated the movie even before the release because it starred women. Everyone loved Wonder Woman, the first movie. It did very well. Yes, there were some criticisms of it. It's not The Godfather, but it was successful. It was true to the character. She was interesting. She was compelling. It had plenty of action. That's how you do a female superhero. The people who actually went to go see the Marvels were mostly men. All of the women that were supposed to be attracted to female representation in the movie didn't show up for the movie. People can blame Marvel fans as much as they want to. They can blame people who were excited to go see the Avengers, but are not excited to go see this mess of characters. But the reality is, you either attract the customers or you don't. It doesn't matter what your agenda is. Despite a critical score well above Quantumania, The Marvels crashed at the box office on its way to becoming the lowest grossing Marvel Studios film ever. After a year of highs and lows, The Marvels was the lowest low yet. It was proof that the formula that had worked so well for so long needed an overhaul. In December, Marvel eliminated Kang. After Jonathan Majors was accused of abuse in March, Marvel stayed quiet for months. However, mere hours after he was found guilty, the studio parted ways with the actor. The future film, originally called Avengers Kang Dynasty, is currently being referred to as Avengers 5. It was the necessary decision and also perfectly representative of Marvel's year. Months of turmoil, but now finally a decision that sets the studio off in another direction, even if that direction raises even more questions. The future for Marvel is a big what if. part of which is because it's releasing season 2 of the animated series What If. Beyond that, the year that's behind us may have already forced many changes at Marvel Studios. For example, in November, rumors began to spread about the original Avengers or some iteration of them possibly returning. The director of one of the upcoming Avengers movies left the project, and a new writer came on board. Next year's slate of Disney Plus shows promises to be different, with the first one, Echo, coming under a new banner. Plus, every single movie that the studio was working on was significantly delayed, leaving just this one, Deadpool 3, on the calendar for 2024. That alone should, in theory, help things out. Give the company time to reset, reassess, and come back. Some time away also won't hurt hype and anticipation either. That means Marvel Studios is almost certainly going to have a better year, at least publicly, in 2024. And if it takes that time to get back to what works, 2025 and beyond could put it back on track to some extent, but 2023 will forever be remembered as the year when one of the biggest, most successful, and most important film companies showed that it wasn't perfect, that even the mighty can fall. Whether or not Marvel will get back up again after its big fall is the big question. Ike Perlmutter told Marvel what they needed to focus on. Perlmutter, with David Mizell, came up with a strategy for how to finance and produce their own movies. They had a great financing deal with Merrill Lynch to pull it off. Perlmutter also understood that characters must satisfy something in the customers. The audience must stay passionate about and interested in the characters. Perlmutter knew if he could sell toys based on those characters, the characters could be successful. He knew there was not going to be any toys to sell based on Captain Marvel. He knew that the direction Marvel was going in was not going to be healthy for the brands. The Disney people decided, well, okay, the core fans, it's a small number of people, maybe it's even only a few 100,000 or even maybe 1 million people worldwide. We show our movies to millions upon millions of people. It doesn't matter if we lose 1 million people or 2 million people. We can still do whatever we want with these characters. It's a big world out there. It's a general audience. It's not just comic book fans. Yes, all of that is true. The market is a big place, but it's the comic book fans that let Marvel know when they were producing something good or when they weren't producing something good. All they had to do was pay attention to the fans. That's the same rule that goes for today. I don't have a lot of hope because the same people are in charge at Marvel that they're going to make any good changes. Maybe Deadpool 3 won't be terrible. That doesn't mean they're going to make a universe of characters and bring the characters back on brand. They're certainly not planning on doing that. If people associated with Ike Perlmutter get on the Disney board, they could make real changes. Nelson Peltz is trying to get on the board, trying to bring former Chief Financial Officer Jay Rizzullo back on the board. They know how to run a business. They know how to focus on what their customers want, and that would revive the brands. All of that's possible. It's in the works now. But for the current people at Disney, they ruined an amazing brand, and they did it for all the wrong reasons. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.